Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. I'm Ethan Sard. Nate Crowley is here with me as well. Happy holidays, everybody out there. Merry Christmas. We are recording this a few days before the new year, so your last Jungle Fever episode for 2025. We're hoping the Bengals have a little bit more success in 2026 that they did in 2025, but the last couple games have been a little successful. The Bengals, since we did not get an episode last week due to the holidays and some travel issues, we are back, and the Bengals have won two in a row. They took down Miami in Miami last week, and then in Miami weather yesterday in Cincinnati, they took down Arizona 37-16, the final score, or 14, excuse me, in that one. So we'll kind of touch on a few different things in today's episode. We're going to talk a little bit about what we have seen over the last couple of games. Again, some young players making some big plays. Obviously, we're seeing Joe Burrow just operate at the consistent elite level that we know he's capable of, which is great to see late in the season here. And then we're going to start shifting our focus a little bit towards 2026. We're going to kind of take a look back at what we've seen this year, and what the Bengals can improve on as they head into an offseason that, once again, like the last couple, is filled with much uncertainty. It remains to be seen what changes will be made, if any. But that is all for the future. That's all for 26. Let's start with 2025. Ayden, I'll jump to you here. Over these last couple of games, the Bengals offense has been really good. They've scored over 35 points in both of these wins. And the offense really hasn't been an issue all season long. Whether it doesn't matter who you put at quarterback for the most part. And Joe Burrow's just elevated this offense to another level here since his return.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we jump too far into it, I just want to shout out Grandma Crowley, T. Higgins jersey for Christmas. Oh yeah. That's just I had to get that out the way. I had to rock it. It was Christmas, you know
Of
how it goes.
course.
But I feel like these last couple weeks is basically the vision every Bengals fan had for this 2025 team, right? This is what it should have looked like. The defense is playing well. I don't think they're playing great. That touchdown they gave up to Michael Wilson against the Cardinals was laughable. You'll still have that with these guys. Again, it's the usual suspects out there with Barrett Carter and Geno Stone and them, but they're playing well enough to where this offense can just go and decimate teams. So it's a little bittersweet. It's a little vindicating as well, just to know that, hey, maybe we weren't all that bad. We're also beating up on bad teams. So there's a little bit of that to roll into it as well. But the play of Joe Burrow, I mean, again, people talk about it all the time, but against the Cardinals, he had 19 dropbacks where he faced zero pressure. He was 19 for 19 for 203 yards and three touchdowns. When he's got a clean pocket, and this offensive line has been playing great over these last couple weeks, he's the best in the game. It isn't particularly close. He even completed a pass to Cody Ford, which
That
was
was fun.
hilarious.
That was
Happy
fun.
birthday to Cody Ford. By the way, Zach Taylor just being disrespectful. I mean, if I'm the Arizona Cardinals and I'm down that much and you're throwing to your offensive lineman, like, oh my gosh, they're just taunting on
You
you. I did
saw
not
it.
expect that from ZT.
You saw it earlier in the year from Alabama when you saw them throw a couple passes to a guy who's going to be drafted in the first
Proctor.
round, most likely in April, in Caden Proctor. And I've always wondered, if you're a coach and Cody Ford is not just like he's a very big guy, he's over 350
Big
pounds.
fella.
Like, why not throw a swing pass to a lineman and see what happens, right? Especially think about this. Think about on a third and four, right? You split out into, let's just say, like a spread, two receivers on each side, and you put your lineman like Cody Ford was out there on the outside. You snap the ball, you instantly throw it out to him. Who's stopping that? Are any of those
Well,
180, 190 pound corners going to be able to tackle a 350 pound man? I, I'm just saying. I'm
I don't
just,
think
I'm
this
just
is.
asking a question. I'm not asking for an answer. I'm asking a question.
I don't think this is a long-term solution. But hey, to Cody Ford's credit, great athlete,
Barreled,
phenomenal.
barreled down the field.
The route, honestly, not horrible. Good footwork. The hands, a little questionable. A little questionable with the hands. Kind of caught it with the chest, but he's a big fella, so it
Gotta
doesn't
see it
matter.
in. Gotta
And
see
then
it
the
in.
footwork down the sideline was unreal. I mean, he went for 21 yards.
Yep.
But I just don't think that that's the plan moving forward. That was a happy birthday moment. He said during practice, well, they were talking about the idea earlier in the week, and then they went out to practice and actually practiced it. And that was his moment of like, oh shoot, like they're being serious about this. And then and then when they called it, he was like, I really wasn't nervous until Burrows spun it to me. And even Joe was like, yeah, I wasn't really going to try and throw it to him at that play, but I wanted to go to Jamar. He was covered. Mike was covered, and Cody was wide open. So happy
Why
birthday.
not?
And listen, we're at the point of the year, you're out of it.
Let's have
It's your
some fun.
birthday. We're
Let's
having
have
fun.
some fun.
It is what
Like
it is.
and that's a common argument a lot of people have made, and I get it. Is that they should just lose, right? Like they should just quit, give up, sit Burrow, right? Like and there's a part of me that feels that argument, right? That understands that picking earlier in the draft is better. And this is honestly a draft, and we'll talk about this a little later in the video. This is a draft that the top end prospects are not at the same level as we've seen in some other drafts. A lot of the top prospects are coming next year, or left last year. This is kind of a little bit of an in the middle type. I would make the argument, I'll say this right now. I'll make the argument that there's no generational prospects in this draft. There are plenty of very, very, very good players in this draft. I don't know if there's any generational players. Now, I might be wrong, right? We might be talking 20 years from now, and Arvell Reese, for example, is a 10-time All-Pro, right? But like I don't see it right now. And again, it's early. It's December. Again, we're going to be having these conversations for the next 4 months. So
And
there's going
this
to be plenty
team's
of
been through
time.
a lot this season. This
Absolutely.
team has been through the ringer. I just feel like they needed a little something to build on for next year. And I know that that isn't necessarily the case because a lot of guys come in and out in the off season, and there is so much movement nowadays in the NFL. But there's got to be just something, right? And defensively, you've seen it a little bit. And obviously, like Chase Brown really, I think, needed this second half of the season that he's had based off of how he
Absolutely.
started this season.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out Jamar Chase, shout out Chase Brown, shout out Trey McBride. Had all three in my fantasy championship. We brought home the W.
I got smoked in both of mine, so I can't
But
even say.
I think they needed that a little bit to kind of go into next year. Get a little bit of that. And you have to start having the conversation. And I think this is where we'll kind of pivot to next year is like, there's certain guys who have been playing phenomenal this year and down the stretch that I think you really have to consider getting out and ahead of. And I know you probably have a couple guys on your list.
There are some very interesting conversations that I at least I hope and I would think are already happening inside this building right now in terms of retention, in terms of guys, and in terms of what they want to do this offseason. The Bengals are going to enter this offseason with a lot of money, folks. A lot more than
70
they've had.
million, right?
Yes, a lot. It's going to be top 10. I'll just tell you that much. They're going to have a lot of cap space to work with. Does that mean they're going to go after some of the top free agents? We know that the answer is probably not necessarily, just because they tend to not operate that way, right? Like, and that's not to say they won't do it. Orlando Brown was very much a top free agent. The Bengals signed him in 2023, but there are different ways that this organization likes to operate. We know. Let's just put it in the nice way. That's how it's going to be, right? So a very common name that I've seen is obviously the Bengals have had a lot of issues at safety, and a lot of people have suggested Brian Cook from Kansas City, who is a free agent this offseason. Would he be a viable option? Absolutely. Is he going to be signed for top of the line money? Highly doubtful, right? We've seen this team refuse to sign their own players at that position to top level money, and look how that worked out for them. So, I think in terms of where you're looking for the offseason, I'll give you a couple of key positions. Number one is when the one I just mentioned is, I guess you can call it free safety. I saw a good article today. They're really free safeties. There are not a lot of true free safeties in the NFL. Let's just call it safety, right? I will say, and people gripe on this guy a lot. I think Jordan Battles had a solid year. Has he been perfect? Absolutely not. Can the tackling be improved? 10,000%. It better be improved. But there are the flashes of a very consistently solid player who can make big plays, right? 5 interceptions on the season, multiple forced fumbles. Those are good stats, right?
That's my biggest difference between him and a guy like Geno Stone. Jordan Battle has
Stone
moments where
needs to
you're
be. I was going to
watching.
get to him. He needs to be
Yeah,
gone.
yeah. I'm just saying on Battle, like that's the biggest difference. Like there are moments where Battle and I'm watching, I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Like he looks lost sometimes. But on the flip side, he provides splash plays, and I think that's valuable as long as you got have a guy beside him, and that's where we'll probably get to the Geno Stone moment, who's a little bit more consistent. Because
Not Gino.
Battle's gonna whiff. He just is, but he is gonna provide the splash plays so you can
I
keep
also
going.
think that, and we say that, but I actually think Battle's been decently consistent, right? Like, yeah, the mistakes have been there, but like I think that there's again, and he can work on this in the offseason, and I have no doubt that he will. If the tackling can improve, there's a, I'm not saying a Pro Bowler necessarily, but there's a starter. Probably, maybe even a little better than just starter level safety there. Now you just have to find that second guy next to him, right? Looking across, let's stick to the defense. We talked in the last offseason before the season about how Bengals might have a little bit of depth issue at corner. And then really they were looking for kind of a top of the line guy to step up. Well, guess what? They've had two step up. Both Michigan men in this secondary have really turned it around. We've talked about DJ Turner all year, right? Because he has consistently been a very good player, right? But we talked a lot about Dax Hill too, and I think he's found his spot. We talked when he was drafted initially as a safety. They've moved him around to three or four different spots. He's had to deal with injuries. It has not been a smooth road for Dax Hill. And these last few games, he's playing at as good a level as anybody in the NFL. This is a starting caliber player. Let's just put it that way. I think the Bengals have their starting corners for next season locked up. Right now, and Ayden mentioned this a second ago, and I think this is kind of where he was going with this, is that getting out ahead of things. I think both of these guys should be re-signed this offseason. Dax Hill's fifth-year option was already picked up last year, which now does look like a good piece of business from Cincinnati. Go re-sign him three years in the 20-ish millions. DJ Turner, go lock him down too. Because both DJ Turner is a second round pick. He's going into a contract near next year. Get out in front of these deals. We've seen them multiple times cost themselves millions of dollars by not getting in front of these deals. Get in front of them with these two in particular because you give yourself a really capable 1-2 at the quarterback spot.
Absolutely. We're recording this just before the end of 2025, start of 2026. My New Year's resolution for the Cincinnati Bengals is to be proactive. That was kind of where I
Good
wanted to
resolution.
go
I like
with,
that.
yeah, that's where I wanted to go with this conversation because you mentioned it. Over the past 5 weeks, Dax Hill is second. He's the second highest coverage grade player in the NFL, period. So he has been phenomenal. DJ Turner has been a Pro Bowler. The fact that, and I'm sorry because Grayson watches this, the fact that Denzel Ward got the Pro Bowl nod over DJ Turner based off this year alone, I'm not taking anything away. Denzel Ward's kind of had a down year, is crazy to me. So if you can get out in front of these contracts and lock these guys down, I think it would be great because then you look around at the rest of the defense. It's like, who are you going to pay? Like, who are you realistically going to plant your flag on? And we talked about that a lot. Another guy that I would love to see them get proactive about is Chase Brown. Because I think he's been phenomenal. I think he's only gotten better as the years go on. And I know obviously he isn't a free agent until 2027, but once again, I would like to see them go after somebody that is as dynamic as Chase Brown. And I also like to see them utilize him a little bit more than what they typically do. I feel like I say that every week and every year with Chase Brown. Um, but those three guys to me are, I would almost want to get it done before the end of the year. What are you waiting for? But
The
we know
Bengals are
how
the
these
only
guys
the
operate.
only team that can negotiate with these guys, right? There's
Right.
no free agency, and none of them, and honestly, all of them are locked up for next year too. But this is about, right, like what you said, getting in front of things. Um, there are some interesting decisions to make on this team. One of them is not right tackle because Marius Mims is playing at as good a level as anybody in the NFL right now. You want to talk about another guy that's just taken that step. And you're really seeing like a lot of good development over the last couple weeks. And Mims isn't the only example of this, but I wanted to highlight him because he's been playing at an elite level, right? This is what I imagine the Bengals front office envisioned when they drafted him at pick 17 last year, right? Or 2 years ago, I should say. This is you're getting into a range now where he is in year two, right? That he's had some very slight hiccups with injuries and he hasn't quite hit that elite talent yet, but he's thinking about it, right? He's on this track right now and he is pointed up. Absolutely. And I think if I think, oh, and I'm glad we mentioned getting ahead of things because another guy that the Bengals should be locking in on locking down right now is Dalton Risner. 1000% should be in the building next year as a part of a team that's looking to be in the playoffs, right? Why this guy was sitting early in the year is beyond me. But ever since he has come into that line, this Bengals offensive line has been a top half unit. It's been a very consistently good offensive line, which is something that nobody has even thought about saying the last 4 or 5 years in Cincinnati. So,
Dan
um,
Orlovsky doesn't watch the game, so he doesn't know that they've been playing really well either. So
well, none of the analysts except for like Nina Kimes watches the game. So, it is whatever. And again, speaking of getting ahead of things, I'm going to get ahead on this as well. People are going to churn the rumor mill all offseason on a certain quarterback. We both know this, but I feel pertinent to say it because there are morons out there who aren't going to believe it, and they're going to read the tweets from Nick Wright or Stephen A. or any of the morons that go on these talk shows. Joe Burrow's not getting traded this offseason, unless, and I'm even saying unless you give up multiple full draft classes, and that may not even be enough, right? It's
he's
crazy
not
that we
going
even have
anywhere.
to have the conversation. And even if people like don't even realize what organization they're dealing with. Like this team doesn't trade people. Carson Palmer had to retire to get traded. Like this isn't like and Burrow seemed pretty freaking happy, if you ask me. It's not happening. It's not happening. Not in any universe. Nobody on this team, none of the key players on this team are getting traded. Jamar Chase isn't going anywhere. T. Higgins isn't going anywhere. All three of those guys will be back. That was the whole goal of last offseason was to make sure they were all sticking around. They are. Spoiler alert. So, a couple other guys that I think have shown some flashes. We've talked a lot about Miles Murphy. Again, another very solid game for him. Continues to just kind of really turn around the image these last few weeks. And he's nobody, maybe anybody in the NFL needed it more than him. Really, ever since kind of the bye, he's been
Yeah.
just playing like a very like an NFL player, which you hadn't seen for a couple of years.
I'd like to see one more year out of Miles
No,
Murphy.
I
I
think
want to
so.
see it again, you know?
But my big thing with him is he's earned that. I think he's earned that edge too, right?
Yeah.
He has earned that opportunity to start week in, week out on the outside. Um,
I think Osai is another guy you want to bring back on that
yep.
defense.
I think you have to, at the very least, and we'll see, because Osai is a unrestricted free agent this offseason. This is, you know who his agent is. You know how much the Bengals love to deal with his agent in particular. We will see how that goes. I do think the Bengals will at the very least make some sort of offer. I don't anticipate Osai's market going nuclear, but he will have interest. There will be
Right.
he's not going to
Yeah.
go out of the league. There will be interest.
I think once again the needs for this Bengals team this offseason are pretty obvious. I would like to see more competition in the edge room, even though we have seen some steps from some of the younger guys. I still would want to see more. Interior defensive line again is a major concern. Some a lot of competition needs to come in the linebacking room, and maybe that comes in the draft because this draft is a great linebacking draft. And then Geno Stone needs to get as far away from Cincinnati as possible. Those are,
Is there a Chinese football league?
I don't know,
Can he
but he
play
can go
there?
play for the Guangdong Tigers
Yeah.
in basketball for all I care.
Yeah.
Just get him out. I'm
No,
done.
I think he's just again, you look at that offseason and the moves that they made. I mean, you tried to replace Jesse Bates with Geno Stone, and you are now seeing the results of
But
that.
I said the needs are pretty glaring, and I think I just named every single position on the defense besides the two cornerback positions, which is
And they
you
could
got the
even, I
money to
think
do it.
they could still stand uprated CB3.
Yeah,
So,
if you got the money to do it, you got to go do it.
And that's the thing. Last year, remember, this was a lot of these issues were very much the same heading into 2025. The Bengals made two major external free agent signings. They signed a rotational nose tackle from Green Bay who had a sack yesterday, by the way. Shout out TJ Slayton. He's been okay. And
When's the last time we had a nose tackle get a sack in a game? This
I don't know.
question.
Before yesterday, I don't know.
Yeah, before yesterday. I'd
Oh,
love to
Chris
know.
Jenkins had a couple in the Minnesota game, but they were all coverage sacks.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, sorry.
uh, and they signed Oren Burks, who was linebacker like 4
Who
in
couldn't even see the field
Philadelphia, who
with
couldn't see the field.
Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter on the field?
Yeah, yeah. So
Sorry.
no, you make a great point there. So again, I don't think they don't need to invest a ton of money this offseason on the offense, right? They've invested most of the money they need to on the offense already, right? Mims has still got plenty of time left on his deal. Orlando Brown could be an interesting conversation in terms of restructuring his contract. I think it's a conversation
Oh,
worth having.
that's a big
Um,
word for this Bengals front office. I don't
I
know.
know, I know. I'm asking them to reinvent the wheel. But aside from that, they signed Ted Karras that extension. He's played at a pretty solid level this back half of the season. Dylan Fairchild looks like just a home run from the third round. A lot of the concerns have been alleviated about him, just in terms of you don't see the play you're getting from him out of a rookie like ever. Like this, he is playing. I would be stunned if he's not an all rookie team selection. Just a home run first season from him. If there were like an all rook, like if there was rookie all pros, he'd be all over that. Just again, nothing but respect for what Dylan Fairchild's done this year. Um, you got to tip your cap in that regard. You also got to tip your cap to Shamar Stewart. He got his first sack yesterday, so a big congrats to him. Obviously, a lot of work to do for Shamar Stewart. But you can't give up on a first round pick. And again, like we said, it's the word with him. There's flashes, right? And it was a very nice sack, made a great play, beat his guy. And it's going to be about development for him, right? And it's going to be about
The
continuing to
Miles Murphy conversation from his rookie year, just doing it again. Doing it
absolutely.
again.
And look, Murphy was on his deathbed and he figured it out finally, right?
Hopefully, it doesn't take that long.
Because if you're the Bengals, you can't afford for it to take 2.5 seasons for Shamar Stewart, and that's the issue. Because I think the big conversations for the Bengals this offseason, number one is the Trey Hendrickson discussion with how the season went for Trey, which is obviously in no way what anybody anticipated, right? Injuries left and right, didn't play at all the second half of the year. Um, I I have a feeling it's just going to be a clean break at this point. I think you will have I think that Trey will leave with plenty of respect. I don't think there will be much arguing or back and forth. I think it will just be, it was a pleasure. You served us well. We appreciate your time, but I think it's time we both moved on. And this is not, look, if they do bring Trey Hendrickson back, I'm not going to complain. I would be happy. But I think that just with the money that he's asking for and what you've seen, I just don't think the Bengals are going to do it. I just don't see it happening. Now he'll probably get 30 plus that big amount of money he's looking for. Maybe not quite as much as he might have gotten, which is a whole nother conversation. Um,
This is why he wanted to get paid
exactly.
last offseason.
Um, but he'll probably still get a solid deal somewhere, right? A team looking for an edge rusher, right? I think Trey Hendrickson will get maybe not the Max Crosby, Myles Garrett type of money, but he'll get 30 million, probably 35 plus million a year. Um, then I think, you kind of need to evaluate, and this is my big, you said your New Year's resolution is to be proactive. Here's my New Year's resolution for the Bengals. Don't draft for need. Don't draft for need. I mean, this is why we're in this spot, right? Because, and we could kind of very briefly touch on where we're going with the draft here. Um, you have in the second round last year, um, Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, right there. Xavier Watts has, I think, 4 interceptions in his rookie season as a safety for Arizona, or excuse me, Atlanta, where
Alabama.
he's Jesse Bates. Um, there were plenty of other players there, and this is like I thought actually Demetrius Knight might have had his best game as a Bengal yesterday. It's not even a real slight on him. It's just you need to
Yeah,
draft. It can be for the other. It can be for the other 60
it
reasons,
is.
not particularly for yesterday. Because I actually thought Demetrius Knight played a pretty good game yesterday. But I think you need better play from that spot, and that's not. I'm not breaking any sort of wild news here. It's pretty obvious where the biggest flaw in this defense is, right? Barrett Carter is slow. He cannot move, right? Demetrius Knight is a 25-year-old rookie. There's a lot of issues in that position. You don't have good depth there either. Ayden said it earlier. This is a class that is chock full with elite linebackers, not just good, elite. In the first round, you're going to have a guy from Ohio State by the name of Sonny Styles, who is a superstar in the making, in my opinion. What, please, I don't know how many of y'all out there watch film. I don't even watch film all that much. When I'm bored, sometimes I'll chuck on film. Watch Sonny Styles against Indiana. I mean, it's beautiful. It would bring a tear to your eye. It really is just special film, right? He's everywhere. Long story short. There's another linebacker on Ohio State that's probably going to get picked before him. That's a little bit less of a traditional kind of off-ball linebacker that Sonny Styles is, and more of a do it everything in Arvell Reese. And then how about a third Buckeye to add to the conversation? A certain safety that I know a lot of Bengals would be very interested in should he be there. Um, I'm going to make the pitch for Caleb Downs here. Obviously, instant leader, might be a captain as a rookie, instant leader type guy, right? Like he is just when you talk about off the field mental stuff. And again, I'm a Buckeye fan here. Put it out for those of you who don't know. I'm an Ohio State guy, so I follow all these guys plenty. Caleb Downs transfers in from Alabama after what was a freshman All-American season in Nick Saban's last year at Bama. Comes in and I mean just instantly like the quarterback of the defense. Sometimes the linebacker could be the quarterback of the defense. Caleb Downs is the quarterback of that, and we've seen how good that defense has been the last couple of years. Um, he will come down and make a lot of plays in the box, right? Which is they kind of have that in Jordan Battle, right? And I'm not saying again, that's not don't misconstrue that as me saying they have Caleb Downs and Jordan Battle. They would work well together. But he comes down, makes a lot of plays in the box. He can play over the top. The one thing Caleb Downs kind of lacks is that like super duper elite athleticism. Even though I think he's still going to score probably over a 9 on the RAS. He doesn't have like the elite speed that some of these safeties have. But that's such a little nitpick on how good he is because everything else, you check every box, right? He is a superstar in the making. I would be, doesn't matter where he goes, he's gonna be probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a first team All Pro within 3 years, right? And I am saying there wasn't any elite prospects, and now I'm talking him up like this, but he's that good, right? He's that good. A
I'm
fourth
curious
pro,
to see where he goes. I am just because the league doesn't really value that position when it comes to draft.
yeah,
Because I mean, just call it how you see it. Caleb Downs is a box safety. You know what I mean? He like you mentioned, he will come down, he'll hit people. He's really good at run fits. He's incredibly smart, incredibly intelligent, but he's not super rangy. He's not going to be that freelancing guy over the middle who's going to go cover and close space super fast. That's not really his game. I'll just
yeah,
be very curious how the league values him because I think he's probably the most complete player in the
he
draft,
might
probably
be. Yeah.
the most pro ready guy. But I just positionally, I'm curious. And then I have that conversation again with a guy like Sonny Styles, same sort of way. How high can a linebacker truly get drafted? And with the Bengals sitting at that 10th spot, I think that puts them in a weird situation because you're not really sure how these teams ahead of you really want to value these guys. Because if you just have a board of best players in the draft, Caleb Downs is probably high on that list, considering the fact that this draft class in itself is not all that impressive, in my opinion. However, teams aren't going to go out there and draft Caleb Downs with the fourth pick in the draft, with the fifth pick in the draft. They just probably aren't.
Yeah.
So
And
you
again,
might see a
a
guy
lot
like
of
that.
this, yeah, a lot of this may not be determined until, we have the combine in a couple months, right? We have all these interviews, right? There are some guys that will interview well. Like I think all three of those guys I just mentioned will interview well, right? There are some guys that may not interview as well, right? There are very interesting decisions at the quarterback position for a lot of these teams near the top of the draft. You look at Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. You look at Will Dante Moore potentially declare out of Oregon, right? Plenty of other quarterbacks that have interesting conundrums here, and teams at the top of the draft that also have interesting conundrums at said position. Another player I want to touch on quickly, and he's finally not a Buckeye, is Peter Woods, the defensive interior lineman at Clemson. We've talked about the need to have that breaker on the inside for the Bengals, and I think that Peter Woods might just be gift wrapped to them in that spot. they have lacked a guy of that caliber. And it pains me to even say this because DJ Reader wasn't this kind of archetype, right? Reader gets a lot of credit as he deserved, but he was a run game monster,
Yeah, he
right?
knows something.
It's why the Bengals didn't allow huge run games really at all for those last couple of seasons, right? If they got beat, it was over the top. Um, they haven't had a player like Peter Woods since Geno Atkins.
Mhm.
And that is a wild thing to say because Geno Atkins retired almost 6 years ago. But Peter Woods is that kind of guy, right? And the interesting thing about Peter Woods is he was probably a consensus top five pick before this season. This year for Clemson, obviously the Tigers underperformed a little bit. He personally didn't quite have as good a year as he did his sophomore season, um, but the talent's undeniable, right? And that I think is a big thing about this draft in particular is looking at some of these prospects and determining how you kind of evaluate the last year for some of them. Woods is a great example of that. In terms of how much do you value kind of some of the, like you look at some of these guys on Penn State, for example, Clemson, LSU. I look at Mansour Delane, for example, a cornerback at LSU, who's probably another top 8 to 10 pick. Bengals probably won't pick him because they're pretty set at corner, but that's a guy that, again, LSU didn't perform well as a team, but Mansour Delane was maybe the best corner in the country for the
Yeah,
Tigers this year.
you couldn't throw
So
them.
he was unbelievable. Quickly mentioning what the Bengals might be looking for in terms of draft positioning. Right now, they're a part of a four, potentially five team kind of congregation here at 6 and 10. New Orleans, Kansas City, them, and potentially Atlanta. They play tonight against the Rams, who, by the way, own that pick. Yeah, interesting conundrum there with the Rams. Very potentially
The
might win a
rich
Super
get richer, Ethan. The rich
Rich,
get
the rich
richer.
will very much get richer. Right now, here is the top 10. Vegas is at one after that Tank Bowl win.
The Giants didn't get the memo.
They did
The
not.
Giants played like their best game of the year. They just rolled.
My brother is a Raiders fan, and he said they better not win, and they didn't. And Geno Smith understood the memo. Ashton Genty, they got it right, and maybe it'll be Fernando Mendoza throwing them passes next year. So the Jets are at number three, Tennessee at number four, and Arizona at number five. All those teams beside the Raiders are 3 and 13. Raiders 2 and 14. You got Cleveland and Washington at 4 and 12. They're at 6 and 7, and then New Orleans, Kansas City, Cincinnati at the 8, 9, and 10. How about Kansas City picking in the top 10? That's going to be very interesting after.
You know exactly who they're going, and it's going to fall in his lap, and he's going to be great, and it's gonna be Love, and they're going to pick
Mm.
him up, and he's going to be a dog. And listen, again, running back is another conversation of guys, do you draft really high or do you not? But like when you're Kansas City and you have Patrick Mahomes and you need more, you just need more juice on offense. Mahomes can't do it all at this point. Jeremiah Love is just going to fall in their
And
lap.
again, I mean, if I'm Kansas City, I might be looking at receiver again, which is wild because they've spent a ton of capital on receiver recently. And it really, I mean, Worthy just has not, like this year especially, just has not panned out for
Right.
them.
I just don't
Um,
think the top guys fall to them. Like a Cardell Tate's not going to be there, and I don't think a Jordan Tyson's going to be there. Who I think Jordan Tyson's probably the best receiver in this draft class. I think
I
he
think it's
goes.
those two guys you mentioned are probably 1 and 2 as of now.
Yeah, I think Tyson probably goes top four.
We well
But
might.
yeah, I think Love drops in his lap. Real quick, 'cause I know we don't have a ton of time, but like you mentioned, the whole don't get trapped into need thing, I battle with a lot because, like, again, we haven't had a pass rush three technique since Geno Adkins, and Peter Woods profiles that at 6'3", 315, and he's super athletic. It's the same conversation we've had with a couple guys the Bengals have drafted recently. The production this year, I guess, just hasn't been there, and it's
The
scary.
thing about Woods is the production has been there. It's not like
Right,
Shamar Stewart where that was that number that we kept bringing up throughout the
right,
process was a career number. Peter Woods was maybe one of the best defensive players in the country in
right.
2024, right? And obviously not quite at the same level in 2025, but another guy to think about is do the Bengals dare draft another edge should Trey Hendrickson leave? There are a couple of solid prospects at the top of this class.
Mr.
Um,
Folk, come on down.
Keldrick Falk out of Auburn is a name. TJ Parker out of Clemson is another guy who again has the stats and the measurables. I think Parker will be the first edge off the board personally. And then
If Bain
you
somehow
know,
drops down, and I think
and
Bain,
Bain, yeah, how could I not mention Bain? He might well be the first edge off the board. You
he
saw
might
how
profile better as an interior, low key.
Yeah, that is an NFL question. His hands, I think, and arms are super short. Not something that typically translates to the NFL. But it could be interesting to see how the Bengals and really teams around the league tend to evaluate him. Then you got the offensive tackle out of Miami. He's got a Polynesian last name, like Mayalga or something like that. He's a monster. I was watching him. He was unbelievable against A&M, against another great edge rusher, the edge rusher of the year in the SEC. I can't remember his name, but the kid out of A&M who's a Cassius Howell. There it is.
You go, nail
But
it.
he locked him down. Just nothing in that whole playoff game. So, again, and for Bengals fans, Ohio State plays Miami 2 days, right? I would just watch that game.
There's
It'll be
so
a great game, first
there's
off.
so many players
But
who are going to be playing on
there's
Sunday on that
there's a
field.
lot of 26, and then there's a whole lot of 27 on that field, including number 4 for Ohio State, who's might well be 1-1 in every draft for all time. So, um,
No, I know
you
this isn't a college football talk, but real quick, I think Miami's the only team talent-wise that can match up to
I
Ohio
think
State.
I agree. I don't
Now,
disagree with that statement.
coaching-wise, we're going to see there's probably a gap, but
I think
talent
the
on the field, Miami's the only team that can
I
beat
think
them.
that comes down to the trenches that game. And it might well be an area where Miami has an advantage. Offensive line is really good. Mentioned Myalga and then Ruben Bain on the interior, or on the outside against an Ohio State offensive line that's dealing with some injuries. It could, you look at every other position, and Ohio State probably wins every other position battle, right? Quarterback, I think Saints, but miles better than Beck. Receivers, even though Miami's got talent, Ohio State is miles better in that department.
I
The
shouldn't have
defense,
gotten you on this tangent.
but look,
The
it's
Buckeyes.
a good football game. Look, and this is what we'll end today off with. I don't know how people only watch the NFL or college football. Watch both. It's just football. We love football. At the end of the day, it's the Bengals podcast, but it's a football podcast. We're talking football. So,
Hey, there's going to be some football played next week with the Bengals and
and the
Browns.
Browns, we'll see.
Oh boy.
Or Sanders
First
wrists
up.
up. I don't have my watch on, but wrists up. We'll see.
He
I
threw
don't
the
know.
worst interception I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was bad.
Like,
The one where he just threw it up in the air. Yeah, that was really dumb. But they beat the Steelers. They made things very interesting in this division next week. Ravens and Steelers, last game of the regular.
to the chagrin of Grayson Wolf, they beat the
Uh,
Steelers.
he was not happy. A lot of Browns fans weren't happy either, but some were because there is a such thing as moral victory. So,
But I
um,
don't think the Browns beat the Bengals in week.
I don't think so either. I think the Bengals offense will be at full strength. Even though the Browns defense is great, I tip my cap to them because I think that's a playoff caliber unit. Obviously, the other side's been the big issue for them. Um, but I think the Bengals will get this one. Low scoring though. I'm going to go 23-17.
Retweet.
Good, it's good score prediction. All right, we'll wrap things up here. This has been the Jungle Fever Podcast. See y'all in 2026.